are alive and kicking today. This is great. Welcome to Parkrose Community United Church of Christ on this kind of cool summer day. We're glad you're here with us, and we offer our respects here to the ancestors and descendants of the original people of this land. We invoke their presence and we welcome all here today, as we do each Sunday. Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. I invite you to stand as you're able as we join in our opening songs. First of all, enter, rejoice, and come in. Active on the island of Iona in Scotland. This is one of his more serious songs. We're going to have another one at the end of the service, too. Inspired by love and anger. Please take a moment to greet those who are new.
Hi, good morning.
planning on doing something Saturday? 22nd? Well, that is this coming Saturday. 22nd.
So, okay, I'll locate Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday, we'll open this time.
Well, I get that still running.
But I ask you to find your way back to your seats and bring that same energy and focus into our prayer time, beginning with our centering song, Spirit of the Living God. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Help me, hold me, fill me, use me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Pray together in one voice. Creating God, move among us now as we seek to bring change and justice to our world. We have sometimes drunk the Kool-Aid of the rulers of commerce. We feel the need to consume, to always have more, to live beyond our means and even our beliefs. Touch our hearts with a new understanding, which turns away from the culture of greed and acquisition. Show us ways we can live out your call to love and mercy, and give us strength to act, not just to talk. We come into the silence, wanting to live, not merely exist. We respond together. We're ready to say yes to a spiritual revolution which brings your realm to this time and place. God. invite the young folks to come join me as we sing our song welcoming them. Welcome as part of the worshiping throng. Water, God's word, bread and cup, prayer and song. This is where children belong. How you doing today, Cecily? Okay. You like this warm weather? It's a little chilly. Have you been swimming? No swimming, but playing outside, I bet. Cool. I know you don't go swimming.
Oh, no, I don't do the water.
But you've been playing outside?
Yes.
Okay. And you were supposed to be camping, but you're going today?
Today, I will go after.
Well, we'll pray for you.
Thank you, I will be asking.
I've got 3 words for you today. Believe, care, and do. And I think they're connected. Because if you believe, then you care. And if you really care, then you do. You take action.
Amen.
So, when you think about things you believe in, what's something you think you believe in that's really solid for you, something that's important? Friendship. And if you believe in friendship, then you care about your friends, right? And what would you do? Would you help them maybe if they need help? Or ask for help if you need help? Cool. So what about you?
I believe in my church.
Mm-hmm.
I care for my church. And I do what I can to help my church.
That's right. So I think those 3 words make a connection that helps us to know that when we believe something, it actually leads directly to doing something. So it's important for us to remember that we can't just say, I believe this, but we show that we believe it by using our hands and our feet and doing whatever it is that calls us into that. Okay, well, let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for your presence in our lives, for all that you bring to us. We ask you to give us the strength to turn our belief into caring, into doing. In your many beautiful names. Amen. All right. Back to your seats. This is where children belong. Welcome as part of the worshiping throng. Water, God's word, bread and cup, prayer and song. This is where children belong. Our Now Testament today is a poem by the Harlem Renaissance poet Pauli Murray. Now, Pauli Murray was a very active civil rights leader throughout most of the 20th century. She lived quite long. And in the 1970s, she was the first African American woman ordained to be an Episcopal priest. And so her career is kind of bookended from this early involvement. The Harlem Renaissance poets were poets like Lawrence Dunbar and others who wrote incredible poetry about oppression and about what it was like to be African American in this country and to come out of slavery. So here's what Pauli Murray had to say. It's not her reading, but apart from this poem, Dark Testament.
Hope is a crushed dog between clenched fingers. Hope is a bird's wing broken by a stone. Hope is a word in a tuneless ditty, a word whispered with the wind, a dream of 40 acres and a mule, a cabin of one's own and a moment to rest, a name and a place for one's children and children's children at last. Hope is a song in a weary throat. Give me a song of hope and a world where I can sing it. Give me a song of faith and a people to believe in it. Give me a song of kindliness and a country where I can live it. Give me a song of hope and love and a brown girl's heart to hear it.
I invite Louise to bring us our passage in our 6th Sunday of the 7 Sunday study of Revelation. This one from the chapter 18 of the book of Revelation.
Good morning. Good morning. Our reading today is from Revelation 18, verses 1 through 8 in the Inclusive Bible. A vision of justice and a plan of action begins to take shape. After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven. Its authority was so great that the earth was lit up by its glory. The angel cried out in a strong voice, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. It has become the dwelling place for demons. It is a haunt for every unclean spirit, a cage for every filthy and disgusting bird. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of idolatry. The rulers of the earth joined in the idolatrous sin, and the earth's buyers and sellers grew rich because of their idolatrous greed." Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of the idolater, my people, so that you will not share in its sins, so that you will not receive any of its plagues. For its sins are piled up to the heavens, and God remembers such crimes. Repay the idolater as it has paid others. Pay back double for what it has done. Mix the idolater a double portion from its own cup. Give back as much torture and grief as the glory and luxury it wallowed in. To itself, the idolater boasts, 'I reign above all. I need no one, nor will I ever warn anyone.' So the idolater's plagues will come in a single day: disease, mourning, and famine. And then it will be consumed by fire. For mighty is the God who judges the idolater." Thanks be to God. Amen.
Thank you, Louise. So, well, maybe for the idolater. We've spent, this is our 6th week now in this study of Revelation that has been amazing. I have to say for myself, it's been a revelation. And today we're talking about revolution, which has to do with changing what's given to us and finding ways that we can live better to get out from under the oppressor. Remember that the title Revelation comes from the Greek word apocalypsis, which does not mean the end of the world. I know I've said this 6 times, but I'm going to keep saying it. It means a revelation, a revealing, an opening up. So the book of Revelation is full of code and symbol, and It's an amazing book that actually is a word of hope to people who have been living in under oppression. Today, we're looking at the book of Revelation through the lens of post-colonialism. And we'll talk a little more about that in a minute. But this is the Revelation Revolution, and try that 3 times fast. We've looked at the symbolism, we've looked at what location means, we've looked at the book through the lens of fantasy and through the lens of feminism. And as we get toward the end of the study and the end of the book of Revelation, we see more and more hope. That's why I felt it was important to have the Polly Murray poem today, because she talks about hope being such a tender thing and difficult. And that's what John is saying to the people to whom he's writing in the book of Revelation. So let's sing, remain seated, and we're going to sing 2 verses of this hymn, and then we're going to maybe talk about it. Those militaristic words, and I know I'm treading on careful ground here because it's everybody's favorite, but keep in mind as we continue this discussion this morning how those words might be transformed in order to better portray the spiritual revolution that we're talking about. Now, post-colonialism is difficult to understand, and I think I kind of knew, but not until preparing for this Bible study on Wednesday and the service today, did I come to grips with some of the nitty-gritty of what that's about. In a colonial world, powerful governments, countries, take over other countries. And it's not just about countries taking over other countries, it's about how the white privileged folks colonialize other people. So it's not just countries colonializing, but it's groups of people oppressing others through this colonial institution. Post-colonialism is difficult to understand, and I found this, it's kind of like Post-Colonialism 101, and I got it from Schmoop, which is a website that speaks mainly to 20-somethings. I love the way they put this, so I think this clarifies a lot about what post-colonialism is. Imagine this. People come over to your house while you're still living there and decide to settle down permanently. They rearrange your furniture, force you to cook for them. They even tell you to say things like wicked instead of hella. Extremely That's what that means for those of us older folks. You'd ask them politely to leave, but every time you raise the subject, they shush you and remind you they've got guns. Big guns. Then, finally, things start looking up, and you push the intruders out, guns and all. Bye! But wait. They've been over for so long that your house no longer feels like your home. Worse yet, you might not even remember how things were before these folks came in. Or you might even like how these people rearranged your home and life. Complicated, right? You think you'd feel footloose and fancy-free, and maybe you kind of do, but there's all this anger, frustration, and confusion too. Plus, where did they put the cookie jar? Post-colonialism is about the anguish of the colonialized who have to deal with the aftermath of colonization. Think about that. And how invasive that would be, even when you're free. I was reminded of Stockholm syndrome, when people who are held captive are then turned free and they still want to stay. Very often in abusive relationships, we're so used to that we can't pull ourselves out of it. The post-colonial view of the book of Revelation would have us deal with what would happen once the Romans let go. What happens when the oppressors, the colonizers, depart? What does that look like for those folks who have lived under that oppression for so long? It's time to reclaim America from illegal immigrants, the big guy in the middle says. And the Native American says, can I help you pack? Okay, so the whole point, the whole impetus of the book of Revelation, the journey through this amazing, fantastical landscape, is all leading to the colonizers going away. And what does the new order look like once they're gone? Now, we already know from this post-colonial perspective, there's going to be some major issues going on with, we've lived so long under this oppression, now what do we do? But the New Jerusalem, the description of the New Jerusalem at the end of Revelation, which is what we're going to deal with next week, brings us this new vision of what the world could be. So, in your mind, if you lived under this oppression for so long, what would the new order, the New Jerusalem, what might be some aspects of that you would expect or that you would want?
Quality.
Equality. And quality.
Yes.
What else?
Justice.
Justice.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Virtue.
Virtue.
Unconditional love.
Love and unconditional love.
Peace.
That was interesting, that came at the same time.
Peace.
Peace.
Voice.
Voice. So there's a lot in, yes? Stability. Yeah. There's a lot involved in this new order that we have to think about.
Amen.
And knowing that this new order is on the way and that we're a part of it, what's my role in the revolution that brings about this new order? How can a revolution be something that's not militaristic? That's not doing the same to the oppressor that the oppressor did to you? I don't have answers for folks. You may be looking for me to give you the recipe.
No, I think we all kind of know. It's definitely not what's going on.
Yeah?
There is another way, and we all have that kind of, that's what we're, for me anyway, holding on to.
Yeah.
I'd like a revolution on it for this.
A revolution. This is a spiritual revolution I'm talking about. And
Well, spiritually, it could be more compassionate for people.
there you go, more compassionate. The person who cut you off might be on the way to the hospital to have a baby.
Right,
Yeah.
Just, basically keep doing what you did before that you were colonized. And if someone saw the other us, it's like, this is still my home. We're still gonna make it like our home.
Mhm.
We're gonna arrange my furniture my way. Yeah, still gonna arrange my furniture my way. You're gonna treat you as guests. We'll make sure you can like live here, but you're not gonna rule over us. This is my property.
We had that experience here a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
Right? When someone came to visit us and tell us what we should be doing, and we said, "You're welcome here, you can't yell when you come in." So there's a sense of claiming what's ours. And I think it helps to know the issues of post-colonialism when you're doing that, knowing that you're going to feel some anger, you're going to feel some frustration. And yet that can't be the place we respond from. It has to influence how we respond. But I think once we turn militaristic, what have we lost? What have we lost? Everything. So I realize this is tough. This is not something simple, and it's not something that happens like that. We're talking about long-term here. And especially in a spiritual revolution way, it's a sense of mindset and heart set. How do our minds and hearts work together to create this new order? And how does that impact what our hands and feet do outwardly in that new order?
Well, I think we expect things to be static, and they're not.
Betty says we expect things to be static, and they're not.
Rules are not.
Yeah. Change is the one thing in life that you can count on.
Yeah, well, I think this is by living these qualities that we all spoke of, compassion, care, justice, love, in our own lives. And we have to realize also that we're not going to be untouched by the change that comes forth. We'll all be affected, but we have to continue to show forth this love, compassion, and these qualities.
It's a big deal.
Amen.
It's a big deal. And I think for years, those of us who claim Christianity have not had to really think about it.
Amen.
Well, we should have been thinking about it, but we weren't. And now we're called to not only think about it, but to speak up and to act.
Amen.
So I'd like to offer these two comments from the book of Revelation, these two verses, which have to do with what we do. And we had a great discussion on Wednesday about this. 18:4, come out of the idolater, my people, so that you will not share in its sin, so that you will not receive any of its plagues. Set yourself apart from the ones who have oppressed you. And by the way, it says Babylon has fallen. Babylon is code for Rome. Okay? And then there was this whole list of things that were going to happen to the idolater, and it was like, God's asking us to do that? No. Mighty is the God who judges the idolater. We don't judge.
Amen.
We do. But not all those ugly things. That's up to God to take care of how they turn out. But if we act in a way that embraces love, our impact can be even more. I would surmise. Well, wanted to share this new logo for the United Church of Christ, which was just introduced at General Synod a couple weeks ago. It's not red and black anymore, it's green and blue. for earth and water and life and growth. And I'm going to try to have a banner made that we can hang that has this. United in Christ's love, a just world for all. A just world for all. And I think this next hymn is a better approach for where we are today than Onward Christian Soldiers. So let's sing 2 verses from this hymn, which is by Jane Parker Huber, who several of her hymns are in our, but this one is not. Remember the things you wrote down that you would like to have revealed or opened up for you during this time we studied opening up and revealing there in this chart. What is it what new perspectives have come to you over the past week? And what still needs to be revealed to you? Amen.
Amen.
One of the ways we act our care and our belief is by giving of our own abundance, and our ushers will receive our morning offering. offer these gifts as symbols of our belief in your world of justice. Use them and us to build that world. In your many beautiful names. Amen. Please be seated. This is the time in the service when we ask what prayers you bring with you this morning. Prayers of joy, prayers of concern, prayers of grief. What is it you bring? Yes, back.
I'd like to ask for prayers to watch over a group of women, including myself, that are going to try to summit St. Helens on Tuesday. May we have the strength to push onward and upward through the pain like we just sang. So think about us and think about us on our journey.
Carrie and a group of women are hoping to summit Mount St. Helens on
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay, so prayers for the journey. God of love. Ronnie.
I'm asking for prayers. Tomorrow I'll be 51. Michael and I are on an adventure. I don't know where we're going, but he brought home the mobile home, and he's taking me out this afternoon after he's finished performing at Club Celebrity. So I don't know how long I'm going to be going and where I'm going, but I'm asking for prayers. I know.
Prayers for Rodney on his great adventure. And my God of love. I ask prayers for family of Walter John Boris and Cindy. His wife Cindy passed on July 3rd. And she didn't want people to know. So I just think it's important that we pray for Walter John as he's finishing moving out of the house here and living. They bought a place in Minnesota. So he'll be near his kids and grandkids. And she did live long enough to see the birth of a new grandchild. So prayers for Cindy and her passing and for Walter John and the family. God of love. Thank you for your presence. Yes.
I just got some news when church started today through a text. We have our granddaughter who is a horse person. Has been at a horse show this weekend, not as a rider, but it's for people who, a rider that has a carriage behind the horse, and they race, and Lisa is a navigator on that cart, so she moves to keep them from tipping over and things like that. Well, the driver hit a tree, and the driver and the horse and Lisa went flying, and everybody's all right, amazingly, but very bruised up. Lisa is extremely sore and still kind of shaken up, but so just prayers for everybody.
Prayers for Lisa and for all those associated in that accident. God of love. Thank you for your presence. Kathy.
We got two concerns. One involves U.S. government taking grizzly bear off the endangered species list. That is in violation of some treaties with some Native Americans that consider the grizzly bear to be a deity, a fellow unit. And so it is prayers that the tribes and the government will reach an agreement on that. And the other thing is I'm going in search of my sister who's been missing since February. So I'm going to go on a journey to find her and use my investigative skills to get use of it.
Matt asked prayers in the recent decision to take the grizzly bear off the endangered species list and what that means for Native Americans who value the grizzly as a partner in life. And also prayers for Matt as he goes on a journey to find his sister who's been missing since February, and he hopes to find her. God of love. Thank you for your presence. Yes.
I have two aunts in Missouri that are in the hospital with pretty serious matters going on, and that's my Aunt Dorothy and my Aunt Lorraine.
Cammie prays for her Aunt Dorothy and Aunt Lorraine, who are in the hospital in Missouri with some serious health issues. God of love. Yes.
I have a friend who's just, ran away from his family, I don't know, just going through a lot of personal problems that, I'm just worried about him, so I just want to pray that, he'll be all right, and that he'll find some, peace and stability in his life.
Can you tell us his first name?
Charles?
Charles. Sam asked us to pray for his friend Charles, who is struggling right now. Prayers that he might find his way. God of love.
We thank you for your presence. Prayers for my son Thomas, who returns to New York City for the same reasons, personal struggles.
Okay. Diana asked prayers for her son John, who's returning to his home in New York City, as he also struggles with some issues. May he find his way. God of love.
Thank you for your presence.
I also asked prayers for Robert and my dear friend and former neighbor, Cindy Loeffler, as she has some surgery tomorrow in Manchester, New Hampshire. So prayers for Cindy. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
Prayers for my daughter Simone and her daughters in their struggle of their family life, that parenting is hard and being a child is hard. So they're struggling, and I'd like to ask for prayers that they can meld together with God's help.
Prayers for Simone and her daughters as they struggle to find out what being family really means. Prayers that they can find some comfort there. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
Let's pray together. Gracious God, we open ourselves to you in this moment, just as we do in many moments during our day. Reminded of your presence and your care. We ask you to be with those we've named aloud, and of course with those we continue to hold in our hearts. May they feel your presence. May they truly feel your presence with them as they seek to find deeper connection with you. May we act as agents of your love to everyone we meet, and may we help them see your presence in their lives. We pray for our broken world, which is hurting in so many ways. We ask for wisdom for leaders and for followers, that we can find ways to reinforce the fact that we are all related, that we are all human beings, we are beloved children of you, our God. Help us to resist the temptation to believe that violence can bring peace. It's a lie, and we know that in our heart of hearts. So help us to find a new spirit in this spiritual revolution that can bring peace through peace to our hurting world. We also pray that we can be your agents in helping those who live on our city streets to find food and shelter, and most of all, to find relationship, to understand that they are part of a larger beloved community. All of these things we ask in the name of your Son, our brother and teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, who taught us to pray in these words from the Gospel of Luke. Abba God, help us to honor your name. Come and set up your kingdom. Give us each day the food we need. Forgive our sins as we forgive everyone who has done wrong to us. And keep us from being tempted. Amen. Our peace moment today, I was searching for something, and on Friday evening was a news report that former President Jimmy Carter was back on the job at age 92 at a Habitat house built. And what a great symbol for peace and for this spiritual revolution that we've been talking about. So I lift up Jimmy Carter and pray that we can all be like him in addressing the needs of the world with peace.
Amen.
Oh God of love, oh God of peace, make wars throughout the world to cease. Heal every malice, hurt and pain. Give peace, oh God, give peace, amen. You'll see announcements on the back of the bulletin. Last chance to update information in the church directory. The copy for making changes is on the money changers table in the Eastern Hall, so please check that out. If everything's fine, just write OK by your name, and Aaron will be putting the new directory together this week. We have Peace and Justice Workshop next Saturday, Interrupting Oppression, an incredible opportunity for us to find ways that we can actually do in the world. And we need to have reservations. We're expecting a bigger crowd than usual. It's gotten more publicity, I think. And so please call the office and let Aaron know, or email the office and let Aaron know that you'd like to be there. The Portland Fruit Tree Project workday is Saturday the 29th. That's a week from next Saturday, from 10 to 1. Also, there's a Peace and Justice team meeting today after worship at 11:30. And a week from today, we're going to convene anybody who's interested in working on Oktoberfest, which is the last day of September, September 30th. So if you're interested in doing that, next Sunday at 11:30, we're going to have a meeting to assign tasks. We have a good template from our first event last year, and I think we hope that it will come off every bit as well. All right, other announcements? Cammy, you're on.
All right, I will be selling July's Food of the Month, which is the coolest thing going for July's Food of the Month is Lucille's Freezer Jam. And I was waiting for you, Lucille, I see you poking your head back there, for what you're going to share with us this year.
There will be raspberry, marionberry, and blackberry freezer jam.
So it is like one of everybody's favorites.
It's very good.
Very good, great reviews. So you will want your opportunity to get in on this deal and win, hopefully win a chance to get that. So it's tickets are $1 each or 6 for $5, and I'll be selling tickets at the Money Changers table, and the drawing will be the last Sunday in July. And then also just a reminder, I've got that found money jar that is there readily for that loose change that you've come across, or the dollar bill you pulled out of the dryer, didn't know it was in there. So we take that, and that's an ongoing miscellaneous fundraiser that we're doing as part of our budget. So thank you.
It's on the Money Changers table.
On Wednesday.
I just wanted to say that our sign-up list for our coffee time for snacks has been blank. So I brought some coffee cake today, and then I picked and sorted through things that were in the kitchen. So during the week, if you happen to pick up some extra cheese or meat or crackers or something that you want to contribute, fruit, drop it by the church and put it in the kitchen, and then we'll find it on Sunday. Thank you.
And sign up.
And, yeah, signing up is great too.
It's that time of year again when we have some fresh vegetables outside from the church, and all things are organic. So if you walk along the walkway outside or East Minister Hallway, you can pick out all sorts of vegetables there, and we're just asking for a small donation. It goes back into the church for next year.
Or a large donation.
Oh, whatever.
All right. I invite you to stand as we sing our closing song. This is a very powerful hymn, again, by John Bell. Oh, Carl Goff. John Bell wrote the music. This is a really great song, and the punchline is the last line of each verse. God has work for us to do. Can you play it all the way through for us, please? And now may the God who has work for us to do reveal that work to you. Go in peace and live in love. Amen.
Amen.